Shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Our last hour here on the Hunt Palmer Show here from Radio Row. It has been a wild week for our first time here for the Super Bowl. We're getting ready for Super Bowl 59. Our pleasure now to welcome to the show Ricky Cobb from Outkick. Ricky, we were just talking off the air. This is your first chance at Radio Row as well. It's been a whirlwind for us. How have you handled things?
Hunt, it's been crazy, man. I appreciate you having me on. I've got a sense of wonderment like a little kid walking into this big convention center and looking around, seeing so many famous broadcasters, athletes. SpongeBob and Patrick are walking around. It's insane.
So we've got a good spot in the sense that we're right behind National ESPN Radio. We're right next to the McAfee set, which, by the way, is always 4 people deep while he's doing whatever he's doing over there. And then USA Today is right here, and they've gotten everybody. So we've seen every famous person there is. They don't generally sit here all that often, but we have seen them all here.
They're teasing you, Hunt.
So we're obviously in Baton Rouge, and Joe Burrow was sitting right there 25 feet from us yesterday, and Rivers, who's been doing an awesome job running gas for us this week, walked over to it and tapped the handler while she kind of looked, and the handler just turned and said, no.
Come on now. No, that's
we're Baton Rouge.
That's on Joe Burrow. That's on Joe Burrow.
Joe's a busy man. He's got a lot going on.
Come on now,
but
Joe.
It's been a blast of a week for us. Hopefully it has been the same for you. You've got a really interesting story. You were a sociology professor, and now you're on Outkick, musing sports and pop culture and whatnot. Tell me how you got into all this.
Well, dude, I was a college professor for 21 years. I resigned from that job when I took the Outkick gig last August. I created this Twitter account, it's X now, Super 70 Sports, about 10, 11 years ago. Thought it was just going to be something I'd do for fun, just a hobby. Maybe my friends would follow along a little bit, think it was funny. And I had no aspirations for it to be anything. Just create. I don't even know why I created it, honestly. I don't know. I was looking for something to do. I was bored, I guess. And it ended up changing my life, man. Here I am now. I should have been in a classroom somewhere today.
Did you like it in the classroom?
I did. I loved it. I loved it. It was a great career for me, and over 2 decades, 21 years there teaching, and I was blessed to do it. It was great. I enjoyed it, but you only live once, and 21 years is a long time to do anything. I kind of understand, and it's almost like the career span of an athlete,
if you're a great one.
If you're a great one. I'm not saying I was a great teacher. I was a great teacher.
There you go. You toot your own horn.
Yeah, I was pretty good. But 21 years, you just think, I loved it. It's nothing against it, but it was time for something new. And how many of these kinds of opportunities fall in your lap? So I thought, you know what? I don't want to look back from the old folks' home one day and say that I was afraid to do it. So here we are.
Here we are. How much of it had to do with the tweet with Howard Cosell and Bruce Jenner and O.J. Simpson? Because that's one I remember that from the internet popping up, and obviously I follow the account. So how much of it had to do with that one?
That helped a lot, to tell you the truth. That one helped a lot. It was 2017. I tweeted that on my 46th birthday.
Okay.
In 2017.
For those unfamiliar, it was a picture of Howard Cosell and Bruce Jenner and O.J. Simpson from the...
I think it was Battle of the Network Stars.
Okay, in the 70s.
70, like maybe 77.
And it said if I could fast forward 30 years, you wouldn't believe this. And so that was it just went viral on the internet, obviously.
That's the one that I for the rest of my life, that's the one I'll be trying to top. Probably never will.
The magnum opus, as they say.
Yeah, I tell people that's my Hey Jude. If I was a band, that would be the encore,
So do you prefer the sports side of it? Do you prefer the pop culture? Or do you prefer the humor? I know that Outkick's kind of varies all of that. What kind of is your lane, would you say?
Yeah, it's a mix. I think my lane on Super 70s has been sports and humor.
Right.
And, of course, we touch on a lot of other stuff. People say, well, why did you name it Super 70s Sports? At the time, I thought that I was just going to tweet about sports in the 70s. And then you find out that, well, I want to talk about the shag carpet that we had when I was a kid. I want to talk about those big gas-guzzling cars that everybody was driving, and everybody was smoking cigarettes, even on airplanes and in restaurants and all of that. And so I thought, well, why limit it? And then if there was something interesting that happened in 1982, why can't I talk about that? And so I sort of forged a path that was a little broader than the name, but sports and comedy is at the heart of it. And culture, obviously Outkick, there's a lot of culture stuff that we integrate into that, and that's a great fit for me because I get to talk about the kinds of things on my show that I would talk about with my buddies if we were hanging out.
What were your formative interests from a sports perspective? I'm assuming in the 70s, were you a big fan of one team, one athlete? What was kind of what got you into sports?
Well, when I fell in love with sports, 1978 was really the year that I fell in love with sports. University of Kentucky, and I grew up in Horse Cave, Kentucky,
right.
And if you live outside of Louisville, Kentucky's your team. And so my grandfather roped me into that at a young age. Kentucky won the national championship when I was 6.
Okay.
And I remember that was huge. And then I was a New York Yankees fan because, again, we didn't have a team in Kentucky.
Right.
And I thought Reggie Jackson was the coolest guy that there was.
Reggie Jackson was the coolest guy.
Yeah, so I became a Yankees fan, and they won the World Series that year. So I thought,
charmed existence.
Yeah, when I was 7 years old, I thought that I thought, oh my gosh, my favorite teams are going to win everything. I found out differently as I got older, but that was really the beginning of me loving sports. That 1978 baseball season where the Yankees came back from, 14 games behind the Red Sox.
I'm just going to guess Billy Martin was the manager. Is that a reasonable guess?
Billy Martin got fired that year.
Well, which time?
He was involved. Yeah, Bob Lemon took over and took him to the World Series. But Brian Doyle, who was a utility infielder, if you look him up, career 161 hitter, I think. The Yankees second baseman then was Willie Randolph. He got hurt. Brian Doyle filled in the World Series, went 7 for 16, and we had a parade for him in Horse Cave, Kentucky. After the World Series, I played Little League ball in Brian Doyle Ballpark.
Okay.
I remember he came into the classroom when I was in second grade, and so what a world. Reggie Jackson, the Yankees, and a dude that lived in my town was on the team. So I was hooked as a sports fan after that.
Have you maintained your Kentucky basketball and Yankees fandom, or has that dissipated over the years?
Well, I moved on from the Yankees when Reggie signed with the California Angels in 1982. I was more of a Reggie Jackson fan than a Yankees fan, so I went with Reggie. I'm a Cubs fan.
I'm a diehard.
Now.
I'm a diehard Cubs fan. WGN got into my living room in the 90s. Sammy started hitting homers, and that was the end of that.
That's it. Harry Carey and Steve Stone. I would come in the afternoons. We got cable TV when I was in, I think, like 4th or 5th grade. And so WGN, this was the most exotic thing in the world to me. You mean I can watch a team every day? And so I would get in from school. The Cubs would be in the second inning. I'd get myself a snack and park myself in front of the TV and watch the Cubs.
I would run to the kitchen table every summer morning and pick the Shreveport Times up, Shreveport, Louisiana, North Louisiana, and I would go to the living section that had the TV guide in it, and I would go to WGN and I would go over, and if at 1:20 it said MLB baseball, my whole day was made.
Oh,
and if it wasn't, my whole day was ruined. And so and then Sosa again started hitting home runs, and then I was locked in forever.
When the Cubs were at home, you had it made because you could watch the Cubs in the afternoon and then watch the Atlanta Braves.
That's right, and I've got good friends that are Braves fans for sure.
I was always so pissed when the Cubs played the Braves.
Are we going to be any good this year?
I wouldn't get our hopes up.
I'd like to get my hopes up. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. I'd like to get my hopes up.
I mean, we got 2016, man.
Trust me, I know.
We're playing with house money for the rest of our lives because I didn't think that was ever going to happen.
Who are some of the folks you've been able to talk to on the Outkick desk this week?
Oh, man, it's been great. Yesterday I had Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, I saw Lawrence. I told people on the air yesterday, the first two people I saw when I walked in were Lawrence Taylor and Joe Montana. I was like, well, this is interesting.
I didn't see Montana. LT told me a great Montana story yesterday, but I had Rod Woodson, Champ Bailey, Trey Wingo was over there. I think I interviewed 13 people over the last 2 days.
What did Lawrence Taylor have to say? I'm assuming he wasn't talking about the water boy. I'm sure he had something more interesting to talk about than that.
Well, I asked him, he's the last guy who was a defensive player to win MVP.
Okay.
And so I think 17 out of the last 18 MVPs have been quarterbacks. And I said, LT, is there ever going to be another defensive player? Is it going to happen? He said, well, you can't play the same kind of defense that I played in the modern game with worrying about where your head's at and where you strike people. And he said, there was one time in my career, Joe Montana was going to the sideline. We were talking about Patrick Mahomes. He said Montana was going to the sideline, and he said I eased up on him, and Joe turned and got about another 15 yards down the sideline. And he said, I told him after the game, if you ever do that again, I'm going to effing kill you. And he said,
I believe him, too.
And he said that apparently Joe did, too, because he said Montana apologized to him.
Oh, it's just a little bit of a different time. It is a little bit of a different time, but like you mentioned, it's just been crazy to see the folks walking around that we have seen walking around. Montana was right over here, and you can tell when folks are walking because they've got like this entourage of like 15 people that are handling, moving them around, and I'm sure y'all have had a ton of fun over there. Have you enjoyed New Orleans?
Man, this is a great city.
This
is only the second time I've ever been here, but I love the atmosphere. I feel the same way now that I did 24 years ago the first time I came here. It's like I got to come back to New Orleans, but I got to come back a lot sooner than another. I'll be too old in 4 more years, so I got to get back down here in the next couple of years because this city has so much to offer. And in the 3 days I'm here running around, hosting the show and getting these interviews and stuff, haven't been able to see as much of it as I would like, but I did get down to Bourbon Street a couple of nights ago. Had a nice time walking around. We did a little man on the street stuff, interviewed a few fans, and was able to hear a little bit of live music and soak in some of the atmosphere. So
did you get anything to eat?
I did. I had a nice steak a couple of nights ago. Clay Travis took a bunch of us out to dinner, and shout out to Clay for that.
Yep.
Got myself a nice cut of steak. That was awfully good. I think I didn't know what it was at the time that I ate it, but I guess it was a crawfish beignet.
Okay, that's excellent.
Okay, I didn't know what they were, but I thought that looks good.
It's fried bread with crawfish and enter on it. So it's going to work.
It was good stuff. So the food down here. I had burnt. I had barbecued burnt ends on mac and cheese last night, and that was good. The only problem is if I was down here for very long, I gained 30 pounds real quick.
It can be an issue. It can be a real issue, especially we talk to college kids who come down when we're covering LSU and whatnot. If they're not from here and this is a little bit new for them, it can be intimidating.
The freshman 15 is real in this area.
On the other side of things, we had an LSU athlete. This was back in 2019 who said that they said, "How did you lose the 25 pounds?" And he said, "I quit eating rice in my gumbo. I just eat the gumbo without the rice." If that'll knock 20 pounds off, whatever the case may be.
Whatever works for you.
He's Ricky Cobb. I know you got a flight to catch back up to Chicago. We appreciate some time. Safe travels.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
He's Ricky Cobb.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
You're hosting a Super Bowl party coming up on Sunday. Need to feed a big group? Corks, awesome spot to do that. They can certainly feed you in bulk. Get those big trays of crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp, crispy shoestring fries as well, and get your honey butter rolls. Don't forget the beignet bites. If you want to do po' boys, they can make that happen for you as well. You can find the menu online at corksfishandshrimp.com. Corks, bringing you our Friday shows each and every week. I guess it's time for me to pick this game because Steve Levy is going to join us here in about 10 minutes. Of course, he of ESPN. He's been at ESPN since 1993. We'll talk to Steve in 10 minutes. And then Troy Jones with Status Pro VR is going to be with us to finish off the show. So it's time for me, I guess, to pick this game. I've given this a ton of thought. Honestly, we've been here all week. And you hear kind of the same two things over and over and over again. Don't bet against Mahomes. Don't bet against Mahomes. Don't bet against Mahomes. And then you hear people say that they think Philly has a better roster. And oftentimes you hear people say both of those two things. And I see both of where they're coming from. Now, Paul Hembekides was with us earlier, and he's an Eagles guy, but he was with us and was like, look, Philly's better everywhere. And just saying, well, don't bet against Mahomes is not really a football breakdown. It's just kind of a train of thought. And I get where he's coming from, too. I can see all the sides of this, okay? But Philadelphia's got a phenomenal offensive line. They've got the best running back on the planet. They've got 2 wide receivers who can absolutely eviscerate you on the outside. Their quarterback is not as good as Kansas City's, and I would suggest he's on a couple of tiers down. But he's still tough to deal with because he can throw the deep ball. He can hurt you badly on 3rd and 6 by tucking it and getting a few yards. They run that tush-push, which will get you 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 time and time and time again. And it's not like Philly's like some Johnny-come-lately here. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were like 10-1 last year before the absolute sky fell. And then they had a phenomenal year this year and got the 2 seed in the NFC. As I continue to look at this game, I just like Philadelphia more. Now, candidly, I have been saying every single Monday, it feels like, on this show, and some Fridays leading into the weekend, like, man, Kansas City won 21-17 again. They can't keep doing this. Kansas City won 24-20. They can't keep doing this. Kansas City won 21-20 with the last-second field goal. They can't keep doing this. And then they kept doing it. So I understand that I'm keeping my hand firmly planted on the burning stove. I'm just not pulling it off. It's cooking. I can smell the burning flesh. It's a nightmare. But I'm just going to keep it on there because I think that Philly's going to run the ball. I think that Philly may hit a big play or two. I think that Philly has a better roster throughout. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs offense, specifically on the outside at wide receiver, is, for this level of the sport, limited. Maybe not in October against a generic NFL team, not against the Saints. But this is a team that I think is better than the sum of its parts, and the Eagles have a better sum when you put their parts together. So I think that there's a real chance that the Eagles go off as a favorite in this game, that over the course of the weekend the number flips from 1.5 to the other side and the Eagles are potentially favored. I'm willing to take that chance. I do think it's low scoring. I told you one of my best plays for this game was under 48.5. Taylor agreed with that when we asked him. I'm not too proud to come on Monday and go, yep, I'm an idiot. 15 weeks in a row, I just kept saying the Chiefs weren't going to get it done, and they just kept getting it done. And I'll be perfectly happy if the Chiefs do win because I'm happy to watch history. I've told you all since Monday, I'm not sick of watching the Chiefs be awesome. I'm in awe of the Chiefs being awesome, and it's probably because I don't have a true NFL dog in the fight. I don't have one to the extent that most of you do with the Saints. I, of course, want the Bengals to win, and I, of course, want the Commanders to win. But that's just a stupid, blind loyalty that showed up 2 and 5 years ago. But I just like watching the Chiefs win. I think it's phenomenal to watch history. And so I'll be fine if they do win. And I'm not like pulling for Jalen Hurts because he's got Alabama blood in him. But I think they're going to win. I think the Eagles are going to win. I'm not as confident as Himbo was in the first hour. He said they would win by multiple possessions. But I think they are going to win because I just think they're better. And I think they'll show that. I don't think they'll run away like they did against Washington because Kansas City's not going to turn the ball over 5 times. That's out of the question with Mahomes. But I think that Philly's got some guys on the interior that could give the Chiefs some problems, and they could get into Mahomes' face a little bit. And I think the Eagles are good enough on the outside not to get beat by those Chiefs' weapons. I think they're going to win. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 24-17, something like that. And I think the Eagles win it by a touchdown. So that's my pick for this Super Bowl. I think there's been I think on my show, I can't speak for Off the Bench and for Matt's show, but on my show, I think that there's been probably a 70-30 Chiefs lean. I'm going to go the other direction. I'm going to go with Philly in this game, and I think the Eagles get it done. I think Jalen Hurts does something that's really important for him to get over the hump from, good, but not quite good enough. I mentioned that yesterday. Good enough to be the starting quarterback for Alabama and not quite good enough to hold off Tua. Good enough to be the starting quarterback at Oklahoma and put up great numbers, not quite good enough to beat LSU. Good enough to be one of the front runners for MVP, but not quite good enough to win the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And good enough to get into the spot again, but maybe not quite good enough. I think he is good enough. I think they will get this done on the back of that running game and some explosive plays from two damn good wide receivers who happen to play their college football in the SEC. So that's my pick. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles to win Super Bowl 59. All right, we're going to step aside. We'll take a timeout. Just want 6 seconds at some point. Just me and Steve Levy. 6 seconds.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Huge shout out to the folks at LeBear's Baton Rouge for making this entire week possible for our entire staff here at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. They've allowed us to be on Radio Row starting Monday at 7 a.m. and we'll wrap things up coming at 6 o'clock today. And, man, it's been an incredible amount of fun for us and has been enlightening. We've talked to a lot of interesting people. You always figure you're going to talk to some athletes this thing, but talking to veterans and talking to different media personalities has been enjoyable as well. And we have a great conversation coming up with Troy Jones of Status Pro VR. It's virtual reality, one of the systems that Jaden Daniels used to do some training. So we'll talk to him in 15 minutes from right now. That'll wrap up our show here on this Friday. Matt's going to drive you home on After Further View coming up from 3 to 6. So very much looking forward to that conversation. I know that Jaden has done a ton of work on virtual reality, and it's kind of the new frontier for training. I've seen Dan Orlovsky do some of this as well when on set at ESPN, where they can put a play in that a defense ran and show exactly what a quarterback saw virtually and show that on television. And that, to me, was just so cool to watch because you can, one, figure out the reads that the quarterback is going through and the deception that the defense is attempting to use, and two, you can see the speed of the game as well, and it's just incredibly eye-opening to watch some of that stuff. And I can't pretend to know exactly how they figure all that out, but it's just really cool to see. And clearly, Jaden Daniels has used it exceptionally well when you consider just how quick his reads are, just how decisive he is with the football. And you realize he's doing something right. And some of that is obviously God-given. He's got a fast processing mind, eyes that can do it with that speed. And then he's just got a lot of reps under his belt. Very few college quarterbacks can be able to play as many games as Jaden did as a starting quarterback to start for 5 years. Doesn't happen all that much. But I'm fascinated by the entire application of this virtual reality system. And we'll talk to Troy Jones from Status Pro VR a little bit later on in about 15 minutes from right now. It's been a busy show. Open things up with our conversation with Military 250, which was fantastic at the top of the show. Paul Hembekides gave us about 15 minutes back at 1:15. Big-time Eagles fan as well as ESPN personality. He was great. Gave you some prop bets as well, which we'll probably lose, but you can check him out. And Brian Asamoah was great enough with some of his time at 1:45. It's now our pleasure to welcome in veteran at ESPN since 1993.
Whoa,
Steve Levy will join us. No, I didn't say that. I said veteran.
Veteran's a nice way of saying that. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well.
Good
Hunt Palmer, it's great to see you. I'm guessing, now this is our first Super Bowl on Radio Row.
Yeah.
We're in Baton Rouge, and we come down the road here to New Orleans an hour. Guessing this is not Super Bowl number 1 for you.
No, actually, I have to count it up every year, and I can't believe how many I've actually been to. I'm so fortunate. This is my 19th consecutive.
Wow.
Got to call 3 of them internationally, which was really cool. And I went to 3 prior to coming to ESPN, 1 as a fan. So very lucky. Anybody who goes to 1 Super Bowl gets pretty lucky, man. And so to go to so many, I'm continue to be blessed and always say I'm the luckiest guy in our industry. And it's been great.
Do you have 1 or 2 locations that are your favorite to travel to?
Glad you asked. Honestly, This is my favorite Super Bowl city.
I'd love to hear that.
This is my single favorite Super Bowl city. I know Miami, has been it's 11. They've had 11 too. It's so spread out, so hard to get around. I am about the walkability.
Yes.
In a city. Can you walk to the stadium? Can you walk to the arena, convention center, all the hotels? New Orleans is perfect. Now, if you tell me you want to upgrade the stadium, I'll take that too.
They've tried year after year after year, and they talk about where they could put things.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar, New Orleans, a little bit landlocked. There's not a lot of room here to expand, so it's kind of stuck with where they are. I always like going to games in the Dome. I realize it doesn't have the bells and whistles that all the new stadiums do, and I fully understand that. But maybe it's just the charm that I've grown up going to games here. But the city is one of my favorites in the country.
It's Super Bowl perfect. It really is. You could have it here. I was just saying, like Indianapolis had it one year, right? And it was perfect. It was also great. People super nice. Hotels closed. Can walk everywhere. I'm all about that. Next year's Santa Clara. It's nowhere near San Francisco.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's sort of boom. The stadium just pops up there. Boom, right? So this is one of my favorites. I've never sat in a seat in the Superdome here. It's always been like the press box broadcast, and so I'm sort of looking forward to being a fan on Sunday. That could be kind of cool too.
Yeah, you're going to be in there in a seat?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I don't have a ticket right now. You got any extra tickets?
I don't have any extra tickets.
Nothing on
I also don't have $4,000 sitting right in my pocket to sit in the nosebleeds.
I keep hearing the prices are coming down.
Are they?
Because nobody can afford the hotel rooms. Since I'm not paying for the hotel room, I thought I might spend it on a ticket. So.
There you go. Well, that sounds good. Where are you on the spectrum of we're watching history with Reid and Mahomes, and I'm kind of sick of the Chiefs? Where are you on that spectrum?
I'm probably in the middle. You know, in terms of if I got to be here, then I want to see greatness. I want to see history. My kids will be watching, but I want to be able to tell my grandkids, that I saw a team win 3 Super Bowls in a row for the first time. I lived through, the Tom Brady greatness, the dynasty, and everything like that. So able to tell my kids about that. But the next chapter on that is Mahomes and the Chiefs. And we should celebrate greatness. Yep. I get the overkill. Can we get some new stories? I think we went through that with the Patriots. We've seen it with the Yankees and the Celtics and all the great dynasty teams. It comes with that territory. So the storyline I'm tired of is the officiating storyline.
Yeah, I'm out on that.
I'd like to get away from that, and I'm really concerned about a fourth quarter call impacting the game. That's the league's worst nightmare, about the only thing that could go wrong here.
And Kelsey brought it up this week. So I can't believe y'all are putting any stock into that. Do we really think that the NFL is calling people saying, make sure the Chiefs win?
No.
There's no way to pull that off.
There's no fixed, there's no script. You want to call it coincidence. Look, great play. You create your own great luck, right? I mean, some of that is skill and talent, but the breaks have seemed to go their way a lot. And let's just hope it doesn't come down to that in the fourth.
They're pretty good. I mean, where were you putting Reid and Mahomes in the pantheon at this point? I was talking to the voice of the Chiefs back on Monday and saying, look, he's one away from Noel, and I don't think he's going to hang it up tomorrow. I think he wants to ride this out with Patrick, and he's still doing a great job.
No, I think Andy's already said he's coming back.
He did say that.
Committed, contractually wise. Listen, he wants to keep Spags around. It seems like he's going to keep Spags too. For whatever reason, doesn't get another head coaching opportunity. We do the Mount Rushmore thing. It's always a lot of fun, right? Lombardi, Belichick, Shula, right? I guess there's no argument on those 3, and then maybe Andy's 4, right? Am I missing somebody obvious?
Noel is,
Chuck
there.
Noel, yeah.
I don't think Tom Landry's going to make that case. So, certainly we'll see how Sunday goes, but it makes a ton of sense. And on the flip side of that, I've kind of said this all week. Like, Jalen Hurts was really good at Alabama, not quite good enough to keep his job. Tua took it. And then he was really good at Oklahoma, not quite good enough to keep up with LSU and the Joe Burrow team. He was really good 2 years ago in the MVP discussion, not quite good enough to win it. He can flip that on Sunday and be good enough. And I think the Eagles are going to win. Yeah.
Look, it's a coin flip game. Everybody that I've talked to thinks it comes down to a late field goal either way. And most people think if it goes that way, it's Mahomes who leads the field goal drive. Being in this business, I feel like I've been able to see Jalen Hurts grow up, man. At Alabama early on, he was not good. I mean, he could run the ball, handle the ball, but every pass seemed to be a challenge his freshman year. I was at that game also. Loses his job to Tua at halftime and all that. To see him progress, I've really enjoyed his story. Highest paid NFL quarterback, annual salary this season. Mahomes has the longer deal, but for one season, it hurts. He doesn't really make mistakes. He's smart. He's cool. The bright lights are not too bright for him. And the fact he still has on his phone, right, that screensaver picture walking through the Chiefs confetti after the last time, that tells you something about him. So, to me, I think I give the edge still to Kansas City. But, again, it's the slightest of edges. Nobody be surprised if Barkley, runs through the Chiefs' defense and they win.
Do you have a pick?
Yeah, I'm going to take Kansas City close, man. I mean, and I say close. It could be a 1 point. Vegas has it at 1 or 1.5. They got a lot of smart guys out in the desert.
They do.
There. They usually get this right. It feels like a 1 point kind of game. Certainly a one possession. No way a team wins by 10. I just don't see that happening here.
What you got to eat when you're in New Orleans? What's the spots you got to make? What's an item you've got to get eaten?
So I'm a tourist. I did the Café du Monde yesterday.
Sure.
I'm not ashamed by it either.
It's great.
It's great, right.
I'm not going to go out of my way because I live down here, but it's good.
And I like strong coffee, and I drink it black, too. I'm not adding any. But it's like in Buffalo, you don't go to Anchor Bar for wings, okay?
Sure.
That's really touristy. But if it's great, it's great. So that Desi Vegas Steakhouse, love that place. GW Fins, right? Is that GW Fins?
Right.
Yeah, hit that spot. Again, this is my single favorite Super Bowl city. I'm not saying that because I'm with you guys now. I'll say it on every station I go on. I'm not even sure it's close, but it's the best here.
Can you believe, based on the early Super Bowls that you went to, that this is what it is? Because this is new for us, and the size of scale of this. LSU is our number 1 team that we cover, and then the Saints are 1A.
Yep.
So we've done national championship games before.
Yeah.
We've never been to the Super Bowl, and now it's down the road, so we're here. This is a national championship game about times 30.
Yeah. And look, the NFL, for all the college love, and there are so many more programs and therefore so many fans, the NFL is just, it's amazing. There's some kind of crazy stat out there. It's like 75% of NFL fans have never been to an NFL game.
Wow.
Right? Because you think about how spaced out the franchises are. In college, there's a college in every city, right? Every suburb has a college you can go to, you can get to. Maybe not a big conference, but there's college football everywhere. The NFL's so spread out, obviously expense, season tickets, those kinds of things. The NFL, they've just figured it out. They're going to add an 18th game for sure, and why wouldn't they lose a preseason game and all that stuff? They don't make too many mistakes in the NFL office on Park Avenue.
They're doing okay based on the status right here. Steve, we're going to let you go. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay.
Hope you get in the stadium on
Thanks
Sunday.
for having me. Yeah, hope
He's Steve Levy,
sneak in. Yeah.
ESPN veteran Steve Levy.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
We're closing up shop here. It's been an incredible week on Radio Row. Shout out to the folks at LeBear's Baton Rouge for making it happen. And we're finishing with the conversation I've been looking forward to all day long, is with Troy Jones of Status Pro VR. Troy, thanks so much for the time. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's our pleasure. You've been here all week?
Yeah. I got in Tuesday night. It's a marathon, man, so I just try to, save as much energy as I can, but enjoy bumping into people you see every year. It's a culmination to a great NFL season, and it's always awesome to chat with people like you about what we're doing.
So we want to talk about what you're doing, which is Status Pro VR. It's virtual reality. And my understanding, and we'll certainly get into it, is that quarterbacks are using this for some training, and I have seen Dan Orlovsky use this on ESPN to kind of break down defenses, which was, to me, I'm a novice football guy. Like, I understand statistics and whatever. I don't know how to break down a cover 3. I don't know what blitzes look. I don't. That's beyond me. And for him to start getting into the weeds about reads and all that kind of stuff has been fascinating to me. So when you started with this project, what was kind of your goal? Was it for the quarterback development? Was it for the breakdown for the media? I mean, what was the idea?
It's a great question. So me and my co-founder Andrew Hawkins are both former athletes.
Okay.
He played 7 years in the NFL. I was a Division I quarterback. And originally, when I first started in VR XR, we built a training product to help athletes train. So the original intent was, again, being a former quarterback, like, how do we help guys get reps? How do we help people improve at their sport, right? We spent so much time, so many years, in this space as players, to be able to go into our professional career contributing into that was interesting. And then what we would notice is when we would put the headset on people, they would have a ton of fun. Players didn't want to take it off. They were celebrating and then just enjoying it. So we said, man, we should make this a video game so fans can now see what it's like to be their favorite athletes, right? So We obviously did the training, launched a gaming product, and then we just started thinking about how do we innovate sports as a whole. So when we would watch broadcasts, to your point, a guy like Dan Orlovsky spends so much time trying to educate fans on what it's like to be the quarterback and what's happening on the field. And we thought, like, hey, if we use our game, instead of watching film, you can show people literally what the players are seeing from their perspective. And that, to your point, that'll bridge the gap for people who may not have played the game or may not fully understand the intricacies of the sport. So when we launched it, obviously, we had to get with the NFL and get with ESPN, and they understood and could see the vision, but they weren't sure. So the first segment, man, was a hit. People loved it. And to your point, everyone wants more content, but then also more different types of content leveraging the tool, and there's a lot of interest around that. But this idea of educating fans and helping people understand the game is, as two guys who played it, we couldn't wish for anything, different or better than that, just because it's truly helping drive the game forward that we love so much.
It's been awesome. I'm told that Jaden Daniels is a guy that's been involved in using virtual reality for his training. Obviously, we're here in Baton Rouge, so we know him very well, and he's obviously doing great things. What can you tell us about that side of it? Who's going to be using this? Is this something that's going to be universally accepted?
In my opinion, I think all athletes eventually, even beyond football, will learn and have some type of experience within VR just to simulate reps. But to your point, a lot of teams, quarterbacks were kind of the origin of starting because they have to know everything, right? So they have to know coverages, they have to know fronts, they have to make checks. So a lot of companies that got into the space when we first got into it were focused on that position. Our differentiator was how do we leverage the tracking data, recreate the plays as they've happened, and have any player use it, right? So we have teams using it on the special team side, the defensive side of the ball, which really set us apart. And I think that going forward, every team is going to be utilizing this, and eventually every position.
I want to talk about the video game side of this, but one question for me, just as a bit of a nerd, like I'm a baseball guy.
Okay.
Can you see an application of this with a hitter tracking breaking balls from somebody, that kind of thing? I mean, is that something that, and like how far in the future could that potentially be?
I mean, there's baseball companies right now trying to, doing that in terms of helping players get visual reps of different pitches and what they look like. Again, as tracking data across all these leagues continue to advance. I mean, first of all, baseball, I'll say this publicly, like baseball has the most sophisticated tracking system. It's such an analytical sport and has been for years. So they were the first to truly universally push that technology. So to your point, in baseball, you're certainly going to see it, and it's already exists in some areas. And then I think as tracking data continues to catch up in all sports, like I said, that is going to be a part of the game. Anything that you need to get a mental rep of, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, fighting, whatever it is, of where it's seeing something from that first person perspective, you're gonna use this tech.
We're chatting with co-founder and CEO Troy Jones of Status Pro, talking virtual reality. You mentioned the gaming side of this. Where are we in that process, and what's coming?
Yeah, so our flagship product launched in 2022. It was the first ever fully licensed NFL game, fully licensed sports game in VR. So we're humbled and excited to be the leader in that space. Again, it's called NFL Pro Era. You can get it in the MetaQuest store. Right now, you can play as the quarterback or on defense. So you can throw touchdowns and catch picks. It's the fun parts of the game. But going forward, really going to drill into the experience of these highlights, right? So if you think about sports and fandom and where it's going, so much of the game is consumed in highlights because, the younger generation isn't sitting down watching full games. The older generation obviously does, but as a way to meet in the middle, it's amazing to allow someone to not only see a highlight, but see it from the first-person perspective, then potentially replicate that play, right? So I think for Status Pro, we're trying to find this unique intersection between gaming and media to where even if you're not a hardcore gamer, we immerse you in a highlight to see what it looks like from that player's perspective, and then you just try it, right? Like it's one thing to see it, like, oh, this is cool, let me see if I can do it, right? And then score you and gamify that, and I think that that's really going to be something that is unique to XR, the space we're in, and really innovate sports and be a preferred method for how fans want to experience the sport.
That's awesome stuff. I know you're a football guy, former college athlete. You got a pick for the game on Sunday?
I do. Obviously, that's been the talk of the town this week. My heart obviously is going with the Eagles. Okay. First of all, I have thought the entire season they're the most complete team. Yeah. I think the front seven is strong, the back end is strong, offensive line is strong, running back is great. Jalen has done an amazing job. Obviously, they're going up against the juggernaut and the Kings of the Mountains, and I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are going to make sure the guys are in position to succeed. But if the Eagles play their game, I think they can pull it out. But again, as long as Pat Mahomes is on the other side, you never know. But I'm gonna go with the Eagles.
It's crazy because I've asked a lot of people that question. Obviously, in 5 days of doing shows, it's almost a universal answer. Like, I think the Eagles are better, but I can't pick against them. I'm taking the Chiefs. Like, that's been like everyone's default answer.
Yeah. I'm going to pick against them, though. I'm going to go Eagles. I don't have a score prediction, but what I will say is I do think I think they jump out early. And I think that they didn't, the Chiefs kind of make it close, but I think the Eagles are able to just fend them off a little bit at the end. And again, it's because Saquon's going to be able to bring it home. That's my prediction.
He's a bad dude. He is Troy Jones, co-founder, CEO of Status Pro, which is an exciting application on many different levels. We appreciate a little bit of time.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
We're wrapping things up. That's it for us on the Hunt Palmer